Okay, it looks like everybody's on. I call to order the Wickliffe City Council meeting of June 14, 2021. Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Present.
Gerhardstein,
Here.
Jaworski,
Here.
Koski,
Here.
thank you. Sakis,
He's excused.
he's excused. Okay, Levon,
Here.
Saloto.
Here.
Approval of council minutes of May 24, 2021.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Koski, second by Councilman Gerhardstein to adopt the council meeting minutes of May 24, 2021 as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Koski,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Reports and communications from the Mayor, Safety Director.
Mayor, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, John.
Maybe you could log off and log back on. We'll move on to the law director and come back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Council President. As I'm sure all council is aware of, the law allowing government bodies to conduct virtual meetings expires on July 1st of this year. So at that point, we are going to have to go back to in-person public meetings under the law. I just want to make council aware that I'm starting to find out that many charter cities, and we are a charter city, are considering legislation or currently adopting legislation to either continue with virtual meetings or to or some type of hybrid of that. I know Cleveland is in the process right now. They have an ordinance in front of council allowing a hybrid form. If a council member is out of town, they can attend virtually and it still be a valid public meeting. So I just wanted to make council aware of all that. So if that's something they ever want to consider in the future of either going to some hybrid version or allowing virtual attendance, you know, there, as a charter city, we could create legislation that would allow that. So that's all I have this evening.
Any questions or comments for the law director? Councilwoman Saloto.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Zealy. So the hybrid model then could be, I mean, we could structure it any way we wanted. So it could be just if someone had a valid excuse out of town or, you know, caught somewhere other than Wickliffe on that day, we can make it just, you know, for specific, you know, allowable events. Or, I mean, we could fashion it any way we want, right?
Yeah,
I think that might be
since we're a charter, yeah, since we're a charter city, you know, we could probably mold it any way we want as long as we had legislation that clearly laid out the ground rules of it. It could be for certain purposes, or like the way I know Cleveland, I believe they still plan on, if this legislation passes, holding all their meetings public, but it does allow virtual attendance by council members. They just want to protect that the public, you know, go on the same way we've been doing it under the current law, that, you know, there's protections to the public to make it, you know, you're a good example, council person. I know me and you have had discussions a couple of years ago, you traveling out of town and being able to virtually participate at that time. I remember you asking me questions about that. That'd be a perfect example of an advantage to something like that.
Right. I mean, I think it could be very valuable because I know, you know, all of us, some of us have, you know, full-time jobs that may take us out of town more often than we want. And it is, you know, it's a great option so we can still be engaged because we can easily be live, but then also for the audience to have another option to watch these live.
It's some of the,
so I don't know how.
Yeah, it's some of the hybrids I've heard about was more so legislation where the public officials that had to vote had to be present, but other people that participate in meetings, administration, things like that, did not have to be. Like I said, it could really, under a charter city, unless the courts make a different ruling, as maybe they will, as some of these laws go in effect, it could be done anyway.
All right, wonderful. So, Ed, I don't know when we would start talking about this or what committee it would go into, but it might be interesting to do, start to talk
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, we'll do that. Any other questions or comments for the law director? Councilman Gerstein.
Scott, what kind of problems are the city going to have now that we're in violation of ordinance 2020-20, now that Kobe Pool is open and Ginger Pool is not open?
So there's not per se in trouble. It's just that we're not enforcing our ordinances. It's supposed to be mandatory that it's supposed to be open.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the law director? Okay, I will put hybrid meetings into the committee of the whole, and maybe we'll talk about it after recess, do some due diligence and see what other cities are doing to see what kind of legislation we want to look at. So we'll just put that hybrid meetings in the committee of the whole. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Hey, Ed, I'm back on my iPad. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. So reports
Okay.
and communications from the mayor, safety director.
Got it. Thank you, sir. And thank you all for your patience. I was on my desktop and it said I was connected. At any rate, thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. First off, in response to the isolated shooting event Phillips Avenue about 2 weeks ago, contrary to the fear-mongering news outlets, this was not technically really a drive-by shooting. Not that it was a good incident, but it was an isolated event inside of a home. And of course, one in a tight neighborhood, extremely serious matter I've been aware of and thinking about often. Incidents like this, of this nature, are exactly why we've held the bleed control classes 2018, 2019, and are offering more classes under the Neighbors Protecting Neighbors program. We still have and will continue to have a safe community. Thank you again to the chiefs for their excellent leadership and everyone's quick response on that day. On that note, there are upcoming CPR classes, American Heart Association certified. This will cover adult, child, infant, AEDs, and choking under the next round of the Neighbors Protecting Neighbors program. 2 dates for this. So the first one filled up pretty quickly, July 17th and August 21st. Both classes will be at the community center from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And again, they are certificate classes. So if you know folks in the city, that some folks have to have these for their professions. And again, this is free of charge to Wickliffe residents. On the fire and safety levy, I know this is under new business. I just want everyone to think back to 2018. We had just started this term. ABB had just left 400 employees, and we had really no economic development on the horizon. A lot has changed since then regarding our savings, business development in the city, bringing Monica on. We've got a lot of great momentum. And after working with the finances for the past 3.5 years, knowing the surplus we now have, almost $2 million more than when we started in 2018, I feel we need to entertain reducing the millage on that levy from 3 mils to either 2.5, 2.75 at the start of 2022. Finance director looked into this for me. We can actually lower this, and if needed in the future, raise it back to the 3 mils just by a simple resolution of council. It wouldn't have to go back to the electorate to raise or lower. I would like to place this in committee to discuss this further with council in September for hopefully a vote shortly after. I think with something like this, we should revisit this topic annually and adjust if needed, probably around the same time as the budget going forward. I see really no reason we should keep accumulating assets as we are currently. Financial software, council is voting on ordinance 2020-30 tonight, item F. I know Debbie sent out an email last week. I made a couple phone calls this afternoon to see if folks had any questions. It's not really an upgrade to the payroll system. I mean, it is an upgrade, but it's a necessity at this point. The finance director informed us of the discontinuation of security patches by Microsoft, which we only learned last week. This is being presented now rather than next year, giving the following facts. 1, we've discussed this software 6 months ago. 2, cyber attacks have increased exponentially recently, and this puts our community at risk. And there is a $9,900 savings by acting now compared to waiting the 6 to 9 months for the 2022 budget. Having said that, I don't feel it's responsible to wait for that budget. Finance Director Dole's email to council on June 10th, 21 is attached to my report. I did attend the True Line tour last week, as most of council did. Amazing dinner, amazing facility, and a great addition to the community. They're still making some slight improvements to the exterior, although almost finished with landscaping. They did bring up, and I discussed briefly, the possibility of installing sidewalks on that side of Silver. I guess I never really noticed before there's no sidewalks on that section of Silver. There was never really anything there before. And a lot of their folks walk up to lunch to Gateway, to Petty's and such. When I was having lunch with Court, Pete and Joe were actually there, so we chatted for a little bit. City engineer did note there is enough space in the right of way for sidewalks. True Line is willing to pay for part of this as well. So I have no idea what the cost is. This was just last week. It might not be an issue for council right now, but wanted to make you guys aware. They just make that area a little safer instead of having droves of people walk up in the street to get lunch. I saw under new business A, MS Consultants update. Nothing has changed since the last council meeting. The next steering committee meeting is the 29th at 4 p.m. But I'll be certain to continue to update council as time goes on. And during recess too, I can just send emails monthly, but we'll get to that. Bids for Lakeland and Robert Street should be going out in about 2 or 3 weeks. I did send an email to council this afternoon regarding the pools. Unfortunately, we're still a little bit short-staffed after the 3-day certification class. So with that, I instructed Tim to open the Lazy River at this point, as it doesn't require another manager either, being in the same location. This will still take some time, maybe a week, as some minor repairs are still needed. I thought the caulking was done, but it still needs just a little bit. So if we do find, again, this was in the email to council, if we find, say, 5 to 7 more guards, we'll be able to open Ginger Pool. I'll update council, if this happens, as soon as it does. I think I've talked to your Hartstein about this. I can't remember who else, but I'd like to start the process for putting the Provo house out to public bid for sale. It's becoming more of a liability every day with no active use. The Provo Guild is out of money, not paying their utilities, and that's going to fall back on the community. The administration is aware of the need to retain a section of parking for the cemetery. We have discussed this as recently as this past Friday in our administrators meeting. Lastly, item G on the agenda, a slight increase to a few aquatic center roles as recommended by Recreation Director Stopp. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any questions or comments for the Mayor, Safety Director? Councilman Garrett, it's time.
Mayor, and before we talk about reducing the fire and safety levy, do you think we should wait to see what House Bill 157 does for the income tax collection before we make an adjustment to the tax levy?
Well, and we certainly can. That's why I want to wait until after recess. I don't want to discuss it, right away. That could be a conversation later in the year. But I think it's one of those things where when we pass a permanent levy, everyone thinks, okay, this is it. It's set in stone. And that's definitely not the case. So if that House bill is not going to be an issue, and we're still when we started this term, Randy, we were, $4.2 million in our carryover. Now it's hovering around $6 million. So that's what I'm looking at the projections. I understand that concern. And we'll definitely take that into consideration, I think, when we discuss this in September.
House Bill 157 could put a hurt on a lot of small communities that people are working remotely from home. So we want to make sure before we go adjusting the levy that we make sure that bill doesn't affect the city that much.
Correct. Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Councilman Jaworski.
Mr. Mayor, is your administration going to take any action then in regards to the Provo House of doing the groundwork as to what it would cost to, or even the engineering that would be needed to do the lot split?
Well, yeah, to be honest, the process, I'm not sure. I think we'd need an authorization from council to start that process in its entirety. I'm not sure how closely Pete's looked at the parking lot or if he knows how much, but I know, again, we were discussing it Friday. So yeah, we'd like to start moving on that as soon as we could. The gentleman that owns the property next door is interested in purchasing it. Not to say, obviously it has to go to public bid, but I can't imagine who else would want to bid on it. So yeah, we'd work that out as quickly as we could.
Any other questions or comments for the Mayor, Safety Director? Councilwoman.
Hi. So I hate to do this again, but again, I represent the city as a whole, and I have to bring up the pool situation again. And I know, John, we talked a lot about, you and I even talked about the fact that you're doing your best. And I know that Tim is doing his best with respect to the amount of lifeguards you have on hand right now. From what I understand, we now have 5 additional lifeguards. And it sounds as if, I got some numbers about exactly how many people it takes to run the pools, et cetera. And I guess I have a lot of upset citizens about Ginger Pool. And I feel it's just, I really have to bring it up because obviously I'm here to represent the citizens who literally are paying taxes and hope that their amenities are here, or at least the amenities that they believed they had here in Wickliffe. So if you've got extra people, I'm just wondering why you would choose to open the Lazy River instead of maybe opening Gindra and waiting on the Lazy River so that you could open both locations.
Well, and part of it is,
the
again,
whole-
we
For the
still,
whole,
correct, yeah, and again, we still don't quite have enough people. I mean, that would require another manager being a different location. Somebody calls off. I mean, it's that tight. We're very close to having enough. And it's easier to open the Lazy River than it is open Gindra. It's a different location. You know, I understand the upset residents and I appreciate your concern for them and bringing this up. But it gets to a point where are we going to discuss this every 2 weeks? Well, obviously we're going on recess soon, but is this gonna be the same conversation in 2 weeks? I mean, I've stated this from the beginning, if we have enough lifeguards, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So it's, Tim and I talked earlier.
and I know we don't have,
Well, John, I mean, I don't think we should be worried about what's easiest for us. I think we should be worried about what's best for the residents. So, I mean, it may be easier for us
Correct.
not to open Gindra, but what I was understood is there takes enough lifeguards to run the Lazy River as it does to run Gindra. And if it's just the manager, I mean, I think we all agreed that we were only looking for, even if we had to open Gindra 4 days a week, I don't think we should be worried about what's easiest for us. I think we should be worried about how we could take care of the residents. That's all I have to say.
No, and I
Absolutely.
understand, and it's a beautiful aquatic center for a small city. The more difficult things that we do, that impacts other city services. So there's a balance of taking care of the residents and doing what's best for the city, which if we do what's best for the city, that's good for everybody as a whole. I mean, they talked about fixing up the pools 2 weeks ago, and then Ron and his guys are getting back to sewers and roads, which were really used by the entire city. So, as I stated earlier, it's Tim and I talked, and it'd be easier and safer to open the Lazy River because we still don't have enough people. If he texted me and said, "Hey, yeah, we're good. We've got definitely enough people to cover everything," we'd be opening Ginger Pool.
Well, doesn't it require more time right now for us to open the Lazy River? Don't we have more work at the Lazy River than it would take us to open Gindra? Can we?
That's a question for Ron. That's a question for Ron. That's a question for Ron. I'm not sure.
I mean,
Councilwoman Saloto?
from what I had understood, Ginger's ready to open. We just need to fill it. And to be honest, it's really not being fair to a large segment of our citizens. It's just different sets of people, John, that go to these different pools. So, Gindra is more of a quiet pool. It's where a lot of our senior citizens go. There are not a lot of kids all the time there. And it's very attractive to a big segment of our population. So it's not just, hey, at least we got one pool open with the Lazy River. If there's any possibility that we can open both pools, maybe keep a section of one pool closed, but open both pools, maybe not all the time. I mean, we can be creative, guys. I mean, I'm sure we can really put together some creative ways to schedule the 31 lifeguards that we have and 40 personnel altogether. I would think that we'd be able to do something to schedule that. And if we can't, like if somebody doesn't show up, that's certainly happening a lot today. I mean, you can't count on everybody to show up when you want them to. And if that happens, great. But then, so maybe we can't open Gindra one day, or we can't open, Colby one day. But the bottom line is we would still open both pools, not ruin Gindra by letting it sit there and dry rot for another year. I don't understand why we just can't be a little more creative.
Law Director Zealy, something you want to say?
Yes, I wanted to just address Councilperson Jaworski's question he had about the Provo House. And to answer that question, I think most likely we wouldn't be looking at a lot split, Councilperson. It'd probably be more efficient and cost effective to do the permanent easement, the city retaining for the parking. So we probably would not be looking at doing a lot split there.
Thank you, Mr. Law Director.
Okay, so John, as far as that safety services, reducing the mills, I mean, we had a 1.4 million projected deficit for this year. Would that impact the 22 budget and have a larger deficit in 2022?
Well, Ed, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. You remember the first year we were in, we had a projected deficit of 900,000. We had a surplus. I mean, you've been doing this for how long now? 12 years? You know how it works. You know the trends. We started with 4.2 million 3.5 years ago. We have over $6 million now. I mean, I think it should be, you're talking about benefiting the residents. This is lowering their taxes. It could. I think we should at least discuss it. I mean, again, in September, not right now, in September.
Right. I don't have a problem. John, you're right. I don't have a problem. I will put it in committee. I think that another potential option would be to potentially, we have a new contract with garbage contract probably coming out next year. So potentially subsidizing that instead with that extra money instead of minimizing the millage is another option. Other cities do that where they subsidize it partially. So another option I could think of.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for the mayor, safety director? Thank you. Report or communications from the council president. I have none. Amendments or additions to the agenda. Mayor Barbish. You're on mute, John.
Sorry, I'm still on mute. Need to call for an executive session to discuss personnel, please.
Okay, we will move executive session to, I believe it's line 18, and then move adjournment to line 19 on the agenda. Okay, and then new business D, I'd like to add Provo House. Okay. Any other additions or amendments to the agenda? If not, we'll move on to administrators. Police Chief Ice.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just like to give you a little bit of brief information, maybe a little more detailed information than what you know about the two shootings that we had. So first shooting was at almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon on June 1st. The shooting occurred at 30210 Phillips. Alonzo O'Neill was shot in the right side of his torso. So there was a disagreement between the person that shot him that we ended up arresting. His name's Tyler Gates. We think there was some drug activity involved, but there was also some kind of a personal conflict, which I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about that because we're still working the case. The fellow that was shot, our police department's arrested him 3 times in the past for possession of drugs and trafficking of drugs. And during the course of this, we also found a large bag of heroin that Mr. Neal tossed. So then 3 days later, we had a second shooting at the same address. The victim was a fellow named Michael Gates, 57 years old. He is the ex-son-in-law of the people that own the house. The people that own the house live a couple of doors down. So again, on the first shooting, we had the SWAT team called in. We were actually surrounded 2 separate houses because we weren't quite sure what was going on. Because these 2 houses are related. The house where the shooting occurred is actually owned by the grandparents who live a couple of doors down. So the second shooting on June 4th, Mr. Gates was lying on his couch watching TV when 4 black males kicked in the door and 18 shots were fired. He was hit 4 times. 2 different guns were used, a 9mm and a .380. Willock officer arrived. He had 2 chest wounds and put a seal over top of his chest wound, and we applied a tourniquet to his arm that was shot, quite possibly saving his life. And he eventually was life flighted to Metro. We actually used BCI&I for evidence collection and processing this. Right now, the 4 suspects from the second shooting we have not identified, but we're still working on it. Detective Bureau is also working on 3 separate sex crime cases. And lastly, the police department revised its police webpage. It's a lot more user-friendly. If you have an opportunity, take a look at that. That would conclude my report, Mr. President.
Any questions or comments for the police chief? Thank you, Chief Ice. Fire Chief Powers. I'm sorry, I take that back. Maria, Councilwoman Slow, do you have a question for the police chief?
Yeah, I just have heard from a lot of the residents around the Phillips Drive area, obviously concerned about, protection that may be around at this point. And have we done anything about the drug situation in that home? Is it that specific home? I mean, do we have a plan of action about how we can clean up that situation?
Well, the person that was involved in a drug activity is actually in jail. He's being charged with a second-degree felony, felonious assault. There's a high possibility you're not going to see him for 10 years. The other fellow that got shot, Michael Gates, unfortunately, he's also a drug user. He just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. He actually doesn't live there. He lives someplace else. He was just staying there when the house got broken into. Now, we can't prove it, but I mean, obviously it looks like this is some kind of retaliation for the first fella getting shot. As far as drug activity, there's a number of houses on the north end that we have drug activity at. We have a list of, at any given time, we have a list of between 25 and 30 addresses that people have complained about with drug activity. As I've mentioned many times in the past, drug activity, investigating drug activity is difficult and very, very time consuming because most people, when they're doing drug activity, is clandestine, they're hiding, so trying to find them is difficult. However, we get a house that we get multiple calls on, like we had one on Regent a couple of years ago that we had multiple calls on. And on that house, we ended up making a multiple arrests of people out of that house. And so far, since then, the drug activity there has slowed down considerably. So that's how we attack the drug activity at the homes. Sometimes we'll get a complaint at a house of drug activity, and we'll sit on it and sit on it and sit on it and get nothing. And you get one or two complaints that somebody saw something. So we tell all the residents that call up complaining about something the same thing. We ask them to try to get license plate numbers, and then we have a system we can run them through for if they're known drug activity. Then we have connections with Cleveland Narcotics and Lake County Narcotics that assist us. So there's nothing specific at this location. I think I believe that the second shooting is probably a retaliation, and more than likely it's not going to occur again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think residents just want to hear a little more explanation, publicly about what's
I don't want to
really
say too much.
happened.
Yeah, I don't want to get into too many details because we're still working on identifying the other ones. And obviously, if we get a chance, we're going to arrest those folks and charge them.
Sure. Thank you so much. And with respect to the sex offenders, that seemed like a large amount. I mean, is it a specific, are they connected in any way, or is it just?
Well, one of them, there's 3 victims of the same family. And then the two other ones are, single individuals, but they're separate. It's unusual that we get 3 at one time. So you can imagine our detective bureau is, plus we're short one guy. Our detective bureau is extremely busy with not just the shootings, but with these cases also.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments for the police chief? Thank you, Chief Ice. Fire Chief Powers.
Thank you, Council President. Just to update you with a couple things, we're having a hard time recruiting part-time personnel. I might have mentioned that once before. We're holding our own. Other communities around us are struggling with it. I think it's going to hit us pretty hard in the next 2 to 3 years as fewer and fewer people are going into public safety. Dan worked with us for about 30 years. So, and he's moving on in his life, and we wish him well. And also on a good note, as you know, I get COVID reports almost daily. We haven't had anybody test positive in the city that's been reported to us in over 2 weeks, which is good news. Very good news that we're kind of getting all this behind us. Other than that, just reiterate once again, we have some of the best paramedics in Northeast Ohio, and on 2 occasions as Chief Ice and most of you have seen this in your tenure. We've hired 9 really highly skilled paramedics. Of course, all of them are highly skilled, but these young kids are really, really good at their job, and I'm quite proud of them. That's all I have, Mr. Council President.
Hey, Jim, sorry, Fire Chief, you froze for a second. Did you say who was retiring after 30 years?
Dan Bauer.
Okay. Any questions or comments for the Fire Chief? Thank you, Chief Powers. Finance Director Doles.
Thank you, Council President. I want to apologize to Council because I didn't get my normal memo out about the ordinances that are on tonight that have to do with the finances. It was quite a busy week last week, so I want to report on all that right now. The general fund carryover, as I'm sure you've seen at the end of May, was $6.1 million. Our income tax is still about 5% down at this point. So I'm still cautiously optimistic that it won't be as bad as I had anticipated. There is an appropriation ordinance number 2021-28, which is increasing the safety services personnel costs by $32,000, and that was for specifically the police overtime that was discussed at the last meeting, or the Finance Committee meeting. Ordinance 2021-29 is to certify delinquent grass cutting bills that have not been paid, and those cuts occurred between April 21st and May 10th of this year. As far as ordinance 2021-30, I respectfully request that the council consider passing this ordinance, if not tonight, then by the end of the year for the upgraded payroll system. As the mayor informed you, I was told last week that Civica, our payroll vendor, will no longer be enhancing that product. And worse than that, the platform, J-based platform that it's based on, Microsoft no longer writes security patches for the J-based platform. So that potentially puts our confidential information on the payroll system at risk. And then the other resolution, 2021-05, is the 8th of 9 payments to Parker Hannafin for the tax incentive grant. That's all I have for tonight.
Any questions or comments for the Finance Director? Councilman Gerritsen.
Ms. Doles, in regards to the ordinance for the new payroll system, so we had a finance meeting early this year when we asked how long that program was good. You told us that program was good for at least 3 years. So how did that, can you explain why that changed between February and now?
I believe I said that it was approximately 3 years because that was the last information that I got from our vendor. And this actually came as a surprise to me. I got the email from the vendor and I'm just passing along information.
Well, because in the finance meeting, you told us 3 to 5 years because I pulled the meetings minutes from the finance of February 1st. And you said 3 to 5 years it was good for. So you can see where I'm a little confused on how it's 6 months or not even 4 months. And we have to get a program.
When I got the quote, the last quote, which was last year, that is what I was told.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, they hadn't changed that information until last week.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can still use this program, but if something were to crash, they would not support fixing it. And the main thing that concerns me at this point is the security risk, to be honest with you. So.
Okay, Councilwoman Saloto? Maria, you're still on mute.
Sorry, guys. So I just want to make sure that I understand what's happening with this. So it is a pretty big expenditure, kind of out of the blue, that we had decided to hold off on. So you can imagine we just had a couple questions since it looks as if we're being asked to sort of pull the trigger now. And that makes sense. I mean, I certainly don't want security to be jeopardized for anybody. But I guess I'm trying to understand, like, when does that security coverage end? Does it end in a period of time? And the only reason I ask this is because I know, I mean, the election is coming up. I mean, we don't know how things are going to pan out, or, you know, what a new council or a new mayor or a new I mean, we don't really know. And that's a big change. Not knowing what we might want to do with payroll, or that anyone who happens to be in council, what might be decided, you know, with the new regime, if you'll have it. So I just want to make sure that we don't spend a lot of money on something that, you know, we don't necessarily need, unless it is a big security issue right now. And then I guess that, you know, certainly would justify the expenditure. So when does the security piece run out?
The information that I got was that Microsoft no longer at this point is releasing any security patches for the J-base platform. CMI, Civica, I've been dealing with them for 14 years, so they'll always be CMI to me. I apologize. Will start releasing by the end of this year mitigation for the PayX system. So, I mean, it's coming end of life by the end of this year. So that's why, you know, if you choose not to take action on it tonight, I would request that you would consider it before the end of the year, so that, you know, we're not caught when it's not being supported anymore, right, and then it crashes in the middle of a payroll and my hands are tied. So
right. And so then I know the mayor did mention that there is like a $9,000 savings if we were to purchase it now, or what's the time limitation for that early bird special, or whatever you call it?
You know, my salesperson went to bat for us because when I asked him after I got this information to get me an updated quote, because it hasn't been quoted for over a year, I believe. And he went to bat to get that because we are a long time customer. The city has been dealing with CMI since, I have it in my notes, but I'm going to take a stab and say 2003 or 4. So I don't have the quote with me. I don't know if it has an end date, but, you know, if we stretched it a little bit longer than that, I am hoping that Todd will be able to go to bat for us again and convince his higher ups that, you know, we're worth that discount because of our longstanding relationship. But I don't know exactly when that expires. I don't think I'll look real quick and see if I have it.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for giving us some more detail.
Oh, no problem.
Councilman Gerritstein?
Debbie, on your handout that you sent us on page 2, it says that the software is I believe it's $23,400. And that says that's good till only December 31st, 2021. So it's $23,000 for 6 months for that software. Am I reading that right?
No, the software itself is $22,500 and the professional services are $23,500. So that's the installation, that's the training, that's all the things that go on the back side of it to get it installed. So the total would be $45,955 and then a discount of $99.05, which brings us to the $36,050.
And that's for 1 year?
No, that's for the software. Then we currently pay a support fee every year for our software support, but that would, I believe that's only a couple $100 more than we're already paying for the new system, which I don't know, I mean, what we paid this year for our current system support. So,
Well, that's what I'm asking. It's $45,000 plus a yearly fee on top of that?
yeah, but that's, I mean, no, not every year. It would
No,
just
I
be
understand that.
the,
$45,000 to buy it. And then you, per year, you have to, I get the software upgrade, but you don't know what the upgrade costs?
the upgrade costs $36,050 with the discount. And the estimated fee for 2022 is $48.99 for the support. And this year we paid really thought I packed all this stuff before I came to this conference.
And if I can jump in, Debbie, while you're looking for those numbers, if you think about the software we have now that's lasted 17 years, let's just pretend we paid the same price for it that we're looking at for this. It's about $2,000 a year. So we have to understand there's a large upfront cost. Remember, cost is only an issue in the absence of value. And what is $2,000 a year? Let's say if this lasts us another 17 years, just to put some perspective to it.
Well, she just said the upgrade for next year is $5,000.
That's the support fee.
Well, yeah, there's, I mean, outside of the software,
an
you break the software
annual
down
fee.
over
Well, I
17
know
years.
you said $2,000 a year. It's $5,000.
For the software. I'm just talking about the software, Randy.
Okay.
Not the support. Okay, let's see.
Debbie,
And I
you still looking something
apologize.
up?
I know I looked it up. I don't have that number written down.
That's okay,
And the-
Debbie. You don't have to
The
look up.
support for this year was about, I believe, $200 to $300 less than what they're estimating for 2022, which they haven't given me an estimate for the PayX. Of course, you know, if they don't support it, there won't be a support fee. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any further questions or comments for the finance director? Thank you, Ms. Doles. Engineer Formica.
Thank you, Council President. I apologize, I can't get my video to work tonight. It's been a busy couple of weeks since our last meeting. We've applied for four different projects by 3 different funding agencies. Hopefully a couple of them will come to fruition, especially the Lakeland Boulevard Phase 2 project. We also asked for funding for a water line project to do like we did at Homewood on East 296th Street, or what Ron and I consider the worst street in the city as far as pavement goes. Also, we applied for CMAQ funding for some improvements to the Rockefeller Ridge intersection in Buena Vista, and then also, which we need to discuss in committee, and then the Gindra Trail improvements, which council approved the resolution on, I think, at the last meeting. So been busy. We still have to get a couple of, well, we've got our projects to get out to bid. Hopefully that by the end of this week, for sure by the end of the next week, we'll have Lakeland Boulevard and Roberts Road out to bid. So endeth my report.
So Pete, we're gonna have to have a special meeting in July for the bid acceptance for those, correct?
Probably, yes, yes.
And what is the timeline on that? Like, are we talking early or late July? What do you think that when the bids will go out? You think by the end of this month or?
I worst case scenario that we'll advertise on the 25th of June and then July 2nd, and then we would open bids on July 9th. So that we would have a bid tabulation ready for you either by, either July 12th or 19th, that we could have that first meeting.
Okay, thank you. My other question for you is, there's a lot of the buses up on Lakeland that Lake Tran uses that they're lining up on the street and not at the park and ride.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that, or when can that be?
They are planning on I just got an email from Lake Tran just on Friday. And let me try to find it here. They are planning on opening up their center to the buses, I believe by the end of this week. And it's just because of the striping and the final landscaping and whatnot that needs to be taken care of on the site. They want to have it kind of in, okay, take over conditions so that Lake Tran can jump in and start parking cars and riding their buses through there. I will get that exact date to you. Wickliffe, let's see here. He wants to open the facility in Wickliffe by the 21st. First.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the city engineer? Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Service Director Strouser.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, since Powers mentioned also, we only have one part-timer who's an older fella that's working for us. We had no kids apply, not one even application to work in the service department for this summer. That's putting a little bit of a hurt on us. As you all know, we're down to 2 mechanics. I had one guy out with an injury for a little bit, and I have vacation starting. It's making it extremely difficult for the service department to function mechanical wise with only one mechanic there on certain days. It's becoming quite a task. I just wanted to bring that to you. We're going to still keep going. Hopefully we can make it out till contract negotiation time, but just wanted to make you well aware of that. Also, our service department, we've been very busy, getting a lot of stuff done. The pools, we've done way more work in the pools this year than we have in the past, because the recreation department usually has 6 to 8 kids, doing a bunch of work there. I think they had one girl that showed up, and she was very, very helpful. She was a very good worker, but they only had like 1 or 2 people helping. So the service department had to pick up some slack there. Dye tests have been going crazy. We've added the last 3 weeks in a row. We've had to add a 3rd day doing dye tests because of the amount of volume that we have, sheer volume that we have. The Provo House, I know that you guys brought that up. I just wanted to shed a little light on that. The gas bill was quite extensive there. I talked with Councilman Gerhardstein, and also I have a meeting tomorrow with former Mayor Awfuldish about the Provo House Guild. I believe they're going to disband it, and I believe it's going to come back to the control of the city. But I am going to meet him over there. There has been quite a bit of use on the gas. I don't know why, but the gas bills were extraordinary. So I went over there on Friday, and Mike Palgett and myself went over there. We shut the gas off and the hot water tank and everything. So there has been no more further gas usage since that date. But there, even in the month of early June, for some reason why, I don't know why, if somebody's got a thermostat that we don't know about cranked up or something somewhere, but it was quite a bit of gas usage there. So I just wanted to mention that. So that's about it in my report, in addition to my report.
Any questions or comments for the service director? Councilman Gerhardstein.
Ron, on the pool, it was my understanding that Ginger could open much easier than the Lazy River, because the Lazy River needed more repairs at its present state than Ginger needed to open. Is that true?
Yes, I would say that the Lazy River needs more repairs. We have still been doing some preventative work there this week, but yeah, there's more pumps involved, more things like that involved that haven't been used. There's some concrete repair, but there is concrete repair also to do at Gindra. That we're still going to perform some of these repairs, whether the pool's open or not, because they need to be done, and they just need to be done. So we are continually doing that. As a matter of fact, I had 2 guys there all day today, pressure washing the Lazy River. And we also been doing a little bit of work at Gindra too, just because, like I said, it needs to be done whether or not the pool's open. So we've been.
In your opinion, which is easier to open for the service department, the Lazy River or Gindra pool?
I would say gender pool, yes.
All right, and on your part-time help, because you have a budget for part-time help, would it help if you increase the rate? Since summer started already, we're already a month into summer. Would it help you if you raise the minimum wage for the service department to help?
It probably would. I would have to change that ordinance. That ordinance is in effect that I can only pay my part-timers, I believe $10.50 an hour is the maximum amount. So I would have to change that if you wanted to go that route. But yeah, it would definitely give me a better chance. But I did talk with the City of Richmond High Service Director, and they're paying $15 an hour to their part-timers. And I think said he got 2 the last time I talked to him. So.
Well, if you think it'll help, let us know, and we'll see if we
Sure.
about raising the rate for the part-time help. If the budget's already there, I mean, obviously you haven't used any of it, so.
I appreciate that. Yes.
All right, thanks, Ron.
Any further questions or comments for the service director? Thank you, Rob. Building Commissioner Sack.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. In addition to my monthly report, should have received a memo from me. It's in regards to a request for a deposit and refund for the erosion and sediment control line item that we are doing in-house with CT. And this is no cost to the city. It's a deposit. And we just need the money there to draw on.
Ray, is that already a line item there for it or no?
Yes, there is.
There's a line item for erosion and sediment control?
For to take the money in, yes. Go ahead, Deb.
I just added one since that has been, since we started doing that.
Yeah.
So I added one and I had to move some appropriation from the site planning because there was already some deposits taken.
Okay, I guess my question is that instead of putting in committee, I'd rather just authorize moving money over there since it's a zero cost thing. But I just want to make sure that the line items are already in the budget. I didn't know if you needed anything before that, that's all. But
I don't believe so.
Okay. Then I will make a motion to authorize the finance director to place 20,000 into an erosion and sediment control line item for deposits.
Second.
Moved by Council President Levon, second by Councilman Gerritstein to authorize the finance director to place $20,000 into an erosion and sediment control deposit line item. Discussion? Sadie, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Koski,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Sakis. Oh, sorry, excused. Saloto.
Yes.
Is there anything more to your report, Mr. Sack?
That's all. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for the building commissioner? Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Recreation Director, stop.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I know the pools are the hot topic. We do have a lot of fun summer programming that are happening. We're in the midst of about to happen. We started our summer camp program last week. We have about 60 kids that are coming. We have 90 overall that have registered for any particular week. So we're in a good spot with summer camp right now. Last weekend, we had our 16th annual golf outing at the Green Ridge Golf Course. We had 52 golfers participate in that, so that was the highest we've had for a while. And thanks to True Line, they sent over 10 golfers to golf in that outing. And also a big thank you to CT Consultants. They really contributed financially, and we're able to have some giveaways for the golfers too. So it was really good. This Friday night is our first movie in the park. We've got Toy Story 4 that's going to be on hand. We do have a bounce house, a DJ. We have a food truck that's coming. Those activities start between 7 to 9 o'clock, and then we'll show the movie at dusk at 9 o'clock. And then also down at our community center, our first concert in the park will be next Tuesday, the 22nd. The Chardon Polka Band is going to be there, and that will run from 6:30 to 8:30. So those are some of the quick highlights of some of the things that are going on in the recreation department.
Councilwoman Koski.
Tim, where is the movie in the park? You told us.
At Colby. It's at Colby. We've got the electronic sign out in the front yard, so we're trying to attract some more people, but it's, yes, at Colby, right in the outfield of Colby #1.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Garrett, it's time.
Tim, your pool manager, Becky,
Yes.
how does her, what, does she feel that since she manages the pools, does she feel that the pools could be opened? Both pools?
No, not at the current staffing levels. It was an either or proposition with the Ginger Pool or the Lazy River. She does not have enough staff to have everything open.
I'm not talking about the Lazy River. If you eliminated the Lazy River, is there enough, did she feel there was enough attendance to run both pools without the Lazy River?
If you eliminate the Lazy River, yes.
Okay. And then last council meeting, I got a text message from a resident who participated in the audience participation last time, and he was questioned. He asked you if the pool passes were going to be reduced. And as of today, he said he never got a response. So did you?
I did not get that contact person. Mr. Liss had a question about
Jeff Butler from Sterling Road.
Okay, I did not.
He asked a question last meeting if the pool passes were going to be reduced, and he contacted me today and said he hadn't got an answer yet. So
yeah,
I'll relay it to Mr. Butler.
Yes. I didn't realize he was waiting for a response. They are still currently not
given a response at the council meeting because the mayor left before audience participation.
At this point, the passes are the same amount.
I will inform the resident of that. Thanks.
Hey guys, if I can jump in there, when we talked earlier, Tim did say, yes, we could open either, but we could barely open Ginger. So, I mean, in my mind, if somebody calls off, we can't open it. There's not enough people to properly open it, keep it open 7 days a week. That's why I decided on the Lazy River. And even he said it'd be easier. When I say easier, not easier for the service department, easier based on the amount of lifeguards we have. Doesn't make sense to do all that work and then 2 kids call off or get in our job, then we have to close it. It's too tight. Maybe if we hire 2 more guards, we can open it. 3 more guards. Can we stop beating this to death for the 6th week in a row?
Well, Mayor, we offered to open Ginger 3 days a week or 4 days a week. We didn't ask for it 7 days a week. So, I mean, we're not trying to kick it to death, but you made a decision with, council's trying to worry about what the residents want. We asked for 4 days a week, not 7 days a week. So, I mean, we're trying to work with the residents and work with you and the recreation director. We didn't ask for 7 days a week.
I know, even 4 days, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to open a pool for a couple days a week.
Tim, I got a quick question for you though. As far as the pool manager goes, I mean, there's been talk that Ginger would need a pool manager as well if people were there. How many lifeguards do we need on the floor at Ginger or around the pool when people are there?
We basically would have 3 in the rotation. There's 2 chairs and 1 kind of scheduled as a break. So you can't have, the same 2 kids in the chair the entire time. So you'd have about 3 guards plus a manager, plus someone that is the checker that checks the passes and makes sure, takes the money and makes sure that the passes are valid. So
I guess go ahead.
And that's the
follow up, I would say, is how important is the pool manager to be there? I mean, I manage people that are 3,000 miles away. Somebody that manages Colby is only 30 seconds away from Ginger, or maybe 30, 2 miles away. So I'm curious to see if we actually have to have a pool manager on site, or if somebody can be the pool manager for both pools at the same time.
I don't have a strong answer for you there, Mr. Council President.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the Councilman Jaworski?
Tim, how many residents were allowed to sign up for swimming lessons at Gindra?
How many were allowed to? I'd have to check with that, Councilman Jaworski. I would have to check on that.
it's my understanding that swim lessons start this week.
Yeah.
And if residents were signed up at Gindra, no one told them Gindra would not be opening, then there's still residents out there that would be thinking, okay, I'm going to be going to Gindra. And they deserve to know that what's going to happen with them. And
Yeah, I know that
it's
when people were signing up, that was always kind of the caveat, we're not sure if Gindra is going to open, So that's what people were told when they signed up for the swim lessons.
right. So what I'm asking then is, are we reaching back out to those people who did sign up for Gindra to say, you are guaranteed a spot, you're guaranteed a spot at Colby on this date at this time, etc.
For Colby, they would be guaranteed because they're signing up for Colby. So you're asking, are the people who would sign up for Gindra, if they could be absorbed into Colby?
Yes.
I will have to check on that to see how many, people can participate in the lessons at Colby to be safe.
It is an absolute atrocity if, for instance, someone was one of the first people to sign up for the 11 o'clock Saturday class at Gindra, and they don't get the chance to go to Colby. It's just wrong.
But it's different levels. It's different levels that are offered at the different places. So it is different levels of swim lessons.
So you're just eliminating one level altogether, the people that would have gone to Gindra?
Let me get the specific for you. Yeah, the TOTS Learn to Swim is for the 1 and 2 year olds and the 3 and 4 year olds on Saturdays, and that starts June 19th. So that did not start this past Saturday. That would have started June 19th. The TOTS Learn to Swim for the at the Aquatic Center, 1 and 2 year olds, 3 and 4 year olds. It's a Monday, Wednesday offering as opposed to just the Saturday offering at Gindra. So that there's different guidelines, different offerings at those two different locations. So we can reach out to them and see, if they wanted to do the Monday, Wednesday, we can price it accordingly. But the Saturday classes had not started yet for Gindra.
So what we're saying is, for those folks who can't get their kids to the pool at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, that want their kids to get that introduction class, that they're out of luck, and that we're going to make no attempt to tell them that, and we're probably not going to even refund their money back either.
No, we would refund. Yeah, we have refunded in the past.
Would hope so.
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't we? What's with these accusations of not refunding people's money if they don't attend a class? That's a little out of line.
John, if we're not being on top of this and not letting the residents know in advance, it's absolutely rude, it's terrible customer service, and it's ridiculous.
I'm talking about refunding the money. We wouldn't keep somebody's money if we didn't.
I would hope not.
I would hope not too.
Any further questions or comments for the Recreation Director? Thank you, Tim. Economic Development Manager, Drake.
Thank you, Council President. Just to report, I heard from Pisces, and due to the construction costs and the cost of going up by $7 million due to what we've been seeing in lumber and all of that, they're on hold. I have communicated with Port King, who is coming on to Palisades Parkway. They're a new company that's coming in to the city, and I will be working with them, Team Neo and Jobs Ohio, on potentially helping them find some funding at the state level, and looking forward to their production here, manufacturing here. The Premier continues working on communicating with businesses, and we will have a call, I believe it's this week, we'll have a call with them on Wednesday for follow-up. Let's see. Regarding UH. So I asked about the length of term of the lease per your request, is 16 hours a month. I'm sorry, 1 year for 16 hours a month, either for 2 4-hour day, I'm sorry, 2 2-hour days or 1 4-hour day. Prevailing rent, she said $18 square foot. So right in line with what Debbie had indicated. And she just asked if the space is still a timeshare, which it is with the podiatrist. The clinic door sign, and if possible, would provide a stand-up sign at the entrance regarding the type of signage that they would need. Asked about it being open to the community or just seniors, and she said that they're open to either. Of course, UH would need Wi-Fi. They would take their laptop at the home back with them at the end of the day. They would not store it on site. The type of supplies that would be stored there would be standard clinic supplies, i.e. Band-Aids, alcohol, swab, pads, syringes, needles, sterile water. And I asked if there's no lockable cabinet available there, would UH supply their own, or were they looking for the city to supply it? And she indicated that UH would provide it. And we do have renter's insurance. She indicated to be determined. Mr. Zealy indicated that renter's insurance is for residential and is not commercial. So he might have better information on that. But I did ask all those questions to get you to answer the questions you asked last week in the committee meeting. Just a reminder, the planning pop-ups are scheduled for July 20th at the car show. And then also on the 30th at the movie night with the community scheduled on the community planning event scheduled on the 3rd. And if possible, it'd be nice probably to put that on a sign or somewhere so that our community will know about it. And of course, many of you were at the True Line event. It's very exciting seeing the new business open and operational in the city. They have a very nice little health clinic in their location as well. And Court indicated that they're looking for also providing that True Line supporting those in need with health type services as well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Monica, I'm sorry, I may have missed it. What was the term of that lease with UH? It was in question?
Let me go back in the email. 1 year for 16 hours a month.
Okay, 1 year. Thank you. Any questions or comments for the Economic Development Manager? Councilwoman Koski. Sherry, you're on mute.
So what exactly is happening with the row house property? I see that all the lanes are being sold and the bowling alley, you know, by Subaru.
He's trying to sell the property. So he's selling equipment and he's not going to be resuming bowling alley operations there.
Okay.
The gentleman that owns that one owns about 5 others in the state, which are performing better.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the Economic Development Manager?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drake. I will now open the floor for audience participation. If anyone would like to address Wickliffe City Council or the mayor, please state your name and address for the clerk's record. Each person will have a 5-minute max amount of time. Would anyone like to address Wickliffe City Council? Mary?
Hi, Mary Acton, 30201 Regent Road. I'd like to thank Chief Ice Lieutenant Thompson, Lieutenant McCafferty, and Chief Powers and his staff for their quick response for the shootings. It happened directly across the street from me. Like to thank Willowick, Willoughby, Willoughby Hills, Eastlake, Menor, and the SWAT team for their quick response. And then for the additional shooting on June 4th for the quick response, we were the ones that called it in. I do want to say that this is a known house, 30210 Phillips. We called it in about a year and a half ago when Pat Hanks was the detective for drugs. So it has been an ongoing issue. I don't understand where Mayor Barbish says it's an isolated issue. I appreciate the patrol Chief Ice is giving our street, and if he could continue it, it would be great because the traffic here has slowed down tremendously. We sit out front and we watch the traffic, and it's amazing how we know where the drug houses are around here. The traffic has slowed down probably 90%.
If I can comment real quick.
Wait,
Okay,
you
go
have
ahead.
to say your name. And so we would appreciate the patrols to keep coming around and making their presence known. That would be very helpful. And then we will contact Lieutenant McCafferty because there's another house we would like to have watched.
And my name is Mark
1 second.
Acton, real quick. If I can ask the chief. Chief, you said that there were 18 shots at the June 4th incident at 3 a.m. I wanted to see if the chief could verify that. I said, because I was awake and there were only 8. And I just wondered, they said they kicked the door in. I said, I didn't notice any door damage or anything. I was just curious. Seems to me like it was a quote, get out of the car, shoot, see if you hit somebody and then go away, because we heard the shots and then we waited and then we heard the car drive away about a minute later. I didn't hear any doors being kicked in, and I was awake. I was like laying in bed, but I was awake. And that's just really puzzling to hear that, because I didn't hear any of that from anybody. So I'm just curious. I think the more importantly in this city is not necessarily the pools. The fact of the matter is safety. And if people are getting shot at in this city, I don't know if anybody wants to go to the pool in the first place. I'd rather have the safety and pay more for the safety than to worry about the pools. I think that's way more important than the whether you can swim between 4 and 6. If somebody's coming by and shooting people and, blowing up with 9mm at 3 a.m, I think that's a lot more important than the pools. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Mrs. Acton, in regards to my comment about being an isolated event, I didn't mean to downplay any severity of the event by any means. Just that what I heard from the media was that they portrayed it as a drive-by shooting. Not to say it necessarily wasn't, but folks might have thought that people were just coming into the city shooting randomly at homes, where I saw it as an isolated event inside that particular home. And that's all I meant by that. I did not mean to downplay the severity by any means.
But you didn't make any comment about it, which made it even worse. You didn't come out as the mayor, as the safety director, and address it.
I just did in my report. This is the first meeting we've had.
But you could have come out on your Facebook and addressed it as the mayor and the safety director, which you did not.
I understand I could have. I don't use social media any longer since January. But again, that's why I've started putting your husband talked about safety programs. That's why I've done my best to put some safety programs in place for residents to try to make the community a little safer. And when the police chief tells me he needs something, we get it for him. But thank you.
Mr. Levon?
Police Chief Ice.
We recovered 18 shell casings from 2 different guns. So there were 18 shots.
Wow.
The hasp of the door was broken off. The door was kicked in.
It was the interior door?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, because we were pop, 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 and that was it. So they went into the house and actually drove into the house. Would that explain the delay in the car leaving? And we heard, again, we reported 8 or 9 shots. And so they went into the house and actually broke into that house. That's what scares me, is because if they were able to break into that house, they could break into anybody's house in this neighborhood if they're afraid that somebody watched it. And
Well,
that's what scares me.
I'd mentioned, and I'll mention again.
Yeah.
I think the mayor's comment, I mean, he was talking about isolated, meaning like an isolated drive-by shooting. Was the actual incident isolated? Of course it was. This thing started over drug activity. The guy got shot, and these are 4 people that came back for retaliation. That house was specifically targeted. Wickliffe is a safe community. Every now and again we get stuff like this going on, and we do the best we can to address it. We've made arrests in the first one, and we're working diligently on the second one. So I understand the fear that the residents have that live in that area down there. We have stepped up patrols, but the activity, you're probably not going to see these guys come back again. First of all, nobody's going to be living there. We've already had some conversations with the folks that own the house, and hopefully they're going to sell it.
Right, 2 doors down. Right.
So this will not occur in the past. I mean, in the future. We've had some drug activity, different houses around the city over the last years, and I've mentioned in my reports over the last 10 years the increase in drug activity. And it's not just here; it's across this country.
Right.
You know, I think I had mentioned many times before. 2010, we confiscated like 7 guns related to criminal activity. Last year, we confiscated 71. Drug activity, we had like 105 in 2010. Last year, we had 745. But that's everywhere. So,
and you guys are doing a great job, and we are extremely happy with the police. Again, we would like to see more emphasis and more importance placed on the police and fire and safety in the city. I get the people want to use the pools. I get that. I think it's much more important to have the city being safe than it is of whether you can swim twice a week. I get it that people want to have some entertainment, and especially after COVID and everything else. But I think it's much more important. I think if they would put a ballot issue on, I'd be first one to vote for it, to add more police and add more fire. I think that'd be much more important in the city than worrying about a pool. That's my opinion, because the pool's gonna be open 3 months a year. We need safety 24/7. So that's just my opinion. And then the city can decide what they need to do. That's all I'm saying. And I appreciate you guys listening to me.
All right, thank you guys, appreciate it. Would anyone else like to address Wickliffe City Council? Mr. Liss.
Jim List, 29717 Arthur Avenue. I'm addressing my comments to the council president. In my opinion, Councilman Gerhardstein, Jaworski, and Saloto are showing civic pride in working with trying to get Ginger Pool open. They're not nagging the mayor. In my opinion, that's probably one of the best unfilled pools in Lake County. And they're just showing their civic pride. My other comment. I'm glad the city's offering this first aid, the CPR and first aid class. I'm signed up for it. I hope I don't have to use it quickly. I know it's at the outdoor pool. There's 19 signs that say, do not dive in the water. And above each sign, it gives the depth of the water at that point. And they're all over the place. I say there's 19 of them. And yet these kids are sneaky. The guards can't do miracles. Mr. Stop can't do miracles. These guys are sneaky. You can't catch them. So I'm suggesting maybe we need some adult hours at the outdoor pool. But if it jeopardizes opening Ginger, forget it. But it's just my opinion. If a kid just jumps in the pool and hits me, I'll start yelling at him. I'll do my part. But I don't want anybody getting hurt there. And I don't want to have to use that CPR I'm taking in Wickliffe. So those are my comments.
Mr. List, can I just ask a question? You wanted to address me on the 3 council people doing their civic duty. Did I in any way say they weren't doing that?
No, I just want to follow right parliamentary procedure.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I understand. I think that I agree that I also would like to see Ginger open. I think majority of council would, if not all, but yeah, we're fighting for it and we're asking the questions. But thank you, sir.
And we're not trying to nag the mayor or anything. It's civic pride.
Okay.
As I said, I think it's one of the best unfilled pools in Lake County.
Understand, sir.
Mr. Council President, I wanted to say something to the Actons before we get too far along with this. And I think one of the things that you guys touched on is the patrols on the side streets and how that's helped out since that event's occurred. I know your guys' street, for years, when I was the Ward 3 councilman, you and I had spoken numerous times about all the, I'm going to call it drag racing down the street. At that point in time, the drug activity was a little bit farther down. But, I think, I continue to hope that the police will do their best to continue to patrol the side streets as much as absolutely possible, because I think it really does work and does help deter some of the criminal activities from the drug activity in the city.
Agreed. Would anyone else like to address Wickliffe City Council?
My name is Carol Wagner. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead. And your address?
I live at 29623 Phillips Avenue.
Thank you.
And I am going to jump on the Gindra Pool train. I live on the north side of Wickliffe. I grew up here. My children grew up here. But 10 years ago, City Council decided to put in $2.7 million into Gindra Park and pool. They tore down the old pool that had been built in '64. And there was a lot of debate on whether to build a new pool, and it was decided, the City Council decided we are building a pool. There was a reason that they wanted to build that pool. I don't think the reason was to not open it. I mean, due to COVID, that's understandable. But Mayor Barbish says it doesn't make sense to open it when everything I've heard tonight, it doesn't make sense not to open it. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, that there is enough staff, even if it's not 7 days a week, that it is possible to have the North residents utilize a pool. Now you've got the senior center down there. A lot of those senior citizens like that pool because it's quieter. They don't have kids jumping on them. It's just a more relaxing atmosphere for them. And talking about safety, this is separate from the police and fire department, but you've got kids whose parents work full time. They don't have anyone to drive them. So you got kids riding their bikes or walking over the railroad tracks where there's not an underpass to get over there to the other pool, which is can be a safety issue. And the other safety issue is a large percentage of toddlers, the number one death rate is due to drowning. So now all these families who were excited about taking their kids to swim at Gindra on Saturday, which was a tradition that had been going on, haven't even been told, hey, they're just going to show up to a pool that's not filled with water. I mean, it's a safety issue to have your kids have the opportunity to learn to swim in Wickliffe. So I just wanted to send my opinion out there. I applaud the councilman and everyone else that have been speaking out for the residents. And I wish Mayor Barbish would keep more of an open mind and listen to what the residents want down here in the north end and to what the councilmen are telling him. It makes more sense to open it.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address Wickliffe City Council? Would anyone else like to address Wickliffe City Council? If not, I'll mark audience participation closed. Move on to committee reports. The Finance Committee met on June 7th, 2021. Meeting called to order at 7:02 with the purpose of the 2022 tax budget. Present, Bogo, Gerhardstein, Jaworski, Levon, Sakis, Saloto. Also present, Doles, Sack, Zeeley. Finance Director Doles presented the 2022 tax budget. She notified the committee that state law requires that all Ohio cities adopt a tax budget for the next year by no later than July 15th of the current year and submit the budget to the County Budget Commission by no later than July 20th. The purpose of the tax budget is to demonstrate the city's need for property taxes. This budget reflects a steady state of city operations and does not anticipate any increases in the rates of taxation. The committee had no objections and it recommends the council that they authorize the law director to prepare legislation for the fiscal year 2022 budget. Council President Levon stated that they will have a hearing for the public at 6:45 on June 28th. This item is reported out of committee, meeting adjourned at 7:06. The committee of the whole met on June 7, 2021, meeting called to order at 7:07. The purpose was a UH lease at the community center. Present: Bogo, Gerardstein, Jaworski, Levon, Sakis, Saloto. Also present: Dole, Sag, Seeley, Drake. Economic Development Manager Drake stated that the University Hospital Systems is looking to rent 2 rooms at our community center, either for 2 hours a day, 2 days a week, or 4 hours once per week. 1 room would be for a physician and the other for the medical assistant to check in the patient and perform the initial exam. UH would need cabinet space to lock up their medical equipment. They would provide their own computer, which links to their main system, and they will be required to pay prevailing rate to lease the space. Councilwoman Saloto asked about the prevailing wage and stated that they have other leases in other locations and we need to price our space accordingly. Councilman Gerardstein asked if there were any details on the signage that they would use to promote this opportunity. Drake stated she would discuss it with UH and relay their needs. Councilman Sakis asked if this would be open to the whole community or just the seniors. Drake believes it will be open to the whole community. Councilman Jaworski asked if they would be storing their laptops in the cabinets as well. Drake stated that she was 90% sure that they would be storing their laptops. They would not be storing their laptops, but she would confirm with UH. Councilman Bogo asked if the items that are being stored would need to be insured. Law Director Zealy stated that he would make sure this rental agreement would remove the city from any and all liability. The committee had no objections and recommends that the law director draw up a lease agreement with UH once the prevailing rate and term of the lease have been finalized. This item is reported out of committee, meeting adjourned at 7:26, respectfully submitted. I will make a motion to authorize the law director to prepare legislation for the fiscal year 2022 tax budget.
Second.
Moved by Council President Levon, second by Councilman Bogo, to authorize the law director to prepare legislation for the fiscal year 2022 tax budget. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Koski,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto,
Yes.
I will make a motion to authorize the law director to draw up a lease agreement with UH based on the terms from the committee meeting.
Second.
Moved by Council President Levon, seconded by Councilwoman Saloto, to authorize the law director to draw up a lease agreement with UH about renting a room at the community center based on I guess based on the terms with the University Hospital System. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Koski,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto,
Yes.
Commission reports. Councilman Jaworski.
Mr. Council President, I do want to follow up from the last meeting where I mentioned Planning Commission in May discussed, it was section 1313.24A3A, which no longer exists. And we had that discussion. We made a recommendation, and I would just ask that that would be placed in the proper committee for council to discuss.
What was that section again, Councilman Jaworski?
I gotta find my notes. Hold on a second, Ed. It was, I believe, 13.13.24A3A.
Okay, we'll put section 1313.24A3A into the Legislation and Welfare Committee.
Thank you. And Planning Commission is also currently looking into chapter 1341 as well, and should have recommendations to council in September.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Gerardstein.
The Parks and Recs Committee met had their yearly bus tour last week. and inspected the parks. I'd like to tell Director Strauser what a great job the parks look, and they'll be making a list for the recommendation to council. That's it.
Thank you. Any other commission reports? Seeing no old business, new business A, MS Consulting updates. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilwoman Salota, we wanted to put that into a committee just so that whenever we have any updates, you can provide council with that update, so the committee with updates, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we will put MS Consulting updates into the Economic Development and Euclid Avenue Redevelopment Committee. Any further discussion on that? MS Consulting updates. Okay.
Thank you, Ed.
New business B, chapter 1323 fences. The law director and I just discussed this. A lot of the Board of Zoning meetings lately have been about fencing on corner lots. Right now, our ordinances restrict corner lots from having fencing in what is their backyard, which is other people's side yards or front yards. So we'd like to maybe take a dive into looking at changing the chapter so that anybody with a corner lot can have a privacy fence or a fence that, you know, keeps their infants or their dogs from, you know, making a nuisance for other people or for safety purposes as well. So we're going to put this chapter 1323 fences into the Legislation and Welfare Committee to discuss potentially modifying that chapter. New business C, fire and safety levy. Is there any other discussion on this one?
Not really from what I added earlier. And again, my initial thought was, I know the couple times that you and I have talked with superintendent of the school board, and in their public meetings, they've alluded to a possible tax increase a couple years down the road. So I always thought of us, the city, working to reduce our taxes. I mean, for the overall betterment of the city and the business owners, et cetera, but then to hopefully offset the school's increases, you know, should that come.
Understandable. Okay, there's no other further discussion on that. Any other discussion? Anybody want anything else to add to that? If not, we just put it in committee and talk about it at a future date. Okay, I'll put fire and safety levy into the finance committee. New business D, Provo House. It's kind of been alluded to twice during this meeting about the Provo House, once by the mayor, once by the service director, that the Provo House Guild has sent us a letter that they are disbanding. They were not paying their gas bill, which is now close to about $2,000, but they also weren't collecting their money from the tenants. They weren't notifying the tenants that they needed to be paid. So that's part of the issue. But I think we do need to put, I think the Provo House is already in committee. I believe it's in Euclid Avenue Economic Development Committee. I do believe we need to discuss this. We definitely need to have the law director look at the lease agreement with the Provo House Guild and see how long it takes us to, you know, move the tenants out, that the two tenants that are currently in there. So we will put that, or whenever we want to talk about the Provo House, we can talk about it once the law director has looked at the lease, and then we can figure out what steps we need to do to either sell that house, abate it, raise it, permanent easement it, whatever we decide to do. So Provo House is already in a committee, so we'll just leave it in that committee, but I just wanted to bring it up that the Provo House Guild has wrote us a letter and is disbanding. Okay. Moving on to ordinances.
Ordinance number 2021-24, an ordinance amending chapter 505.20, animals and fowl of the codified ordinances of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, second reading. Ordinance number 2021-25, an ordinance amending chapter 955.02, municipal swimming pools of the codified ordinances of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, second reading. Ordinance number 2021-26, an ordinance providing for the submission to the electorate of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, proposal to amend the charter of said city by amending Article 11, initiative, referendum, and recall, Section 3, mandatory zoning referendum, second reading. Ordinance number 2021-28, an ordinance providing appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, the period beginning January 1st, 2021 and ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency.
Make a motion to suspend.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Garrett, seconded by Councilman Bogo to suspend the rules of council and place ordinance 2021-28 on third and final reading. Discussion? Councilman Jaworski.
For the audience, could the finance director please explain what this ordinance is and what the monies are that are being moved?
That it would be $32,000 added to the Safety Services Fund appropriations for the police overtime.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Kosky,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Garrett, seconded by Councilman Saloto to adopt ordinance 2021-28 as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Kosky,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2021-29, an ordinance levying an assessment for unpaid bills and costs of cutting noxious or poisonous weeds, vines, tree limbs, or grasses growing upon parcels of land in the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Garrett, seconded by Councilwoman Saloto to suspend the rules of council and place ordinance 2021-29 on third and final reading. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Kosky,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Garrett, seconded by Councilwoman Saloto to adopt ordinance 2021-29 as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Kosky,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2021-30, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio to enter into a contract with Civica North America, Inc., DBA Civica, for the provisions of computer software for the city's Department of Finance and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
I'll second it. Moved by Councilman Bogo, seconded by Councilman Levon to suspend the rules of council and place ordinance 2021-30 on third and final reading. Discussion? Councilman Garrett.
Didn't we table this at the finance committee meeting in the beginning of the year till next year?
That is correct.
Okay.
We also, if I could add, we also didn't know about the ending of security updates at that point.
Yeah. I know I'm just not ready to vote on it today. I think maybe I need 2 more weeks to think about this, as this is completely, something we kind of discussed 4 months ago and now it just came right back up. So I'm not sure I'm ready to suspend this. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Kosky.
I agree with you that I don't think this is something we should act on tonight.
Any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to table this.
Second.
Just a question, we would have to rescind our table, rescind our votes, but if we just vote the suspension down, it will just go to second reading in 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion? So a no vote will make us vote on it, or it would go on second reading for the meeting on the 28th. Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
No.
Gerhardstein,
No.
Jaworski,
No.
Kosky,
No.
Levon,
No.
Saloto.
No.
Okay, so that'll go on second reading.
Ordinance number 2021-09 amended, an ordinance providing for the compensation of certain employees of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio, and repealing any and all other ordinances or parts thereof that may be inconsistent with this ordinance and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Garrett, second by Councilman Bogo to suspend the rules of council and place ordinance 2021-09 amended on third and final reading. Discussion? Councilman Jaworski.
And this pertains to the pool employees, correct?
It's one particular category. It was our cashier checker. We've had a couple persons there for 5 years, 7 years, and we need to address that range.
As far as the discussion,
Director Scott, but if I read that right from last time, it's only like 70 cents an hour, correct?
It's 51 cents.
Yeah, okay.
I would say this to all directors going forward who have this kind of contract, part-time, fire chief, service director, anyone else that has part-time employees, really take a look at it going into next year's ordinances, that we make the range just larger and make this pertinent on whatever you guys think. It's your discretion how much you think your employees should be getting paid, but to have this range capped off and then we have to have ordinances to modify this is a waste of man hours and time for not only the law director and the council clerk and all that. But we should just make the range much larger and then trust that you guys know how to run your departments and can pay your people what rate you think is best, as long as you stay under budget. Any further discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Kosky,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Garrett, second by Councilman Saloto to adopt ordinance 2021-09 amended as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Kosky,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Saloto.
Yes.
Resolution number 2021-05, a resolution adopting the tax budget of the city of Wickliffe, Ohio for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and submitting the same to the auditor of Lake County, Ohio. Second reading. Resolution number 2021-07, a resolution authorizing the Director of Finance of the City of Wickliffe, Ohio to issue the 8th payment of non-tax revenue to Parker Hannafin Corporation pursuant to ordinance number 2012-07 and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Saloto, second by Councilman Garrett Stein to suspend the rules of council and place resolution 2021-07 on third and final reading. Discussion? Law Director Zealy, I'm going to ask this for probably the 9th time in the past 9 years or 8 years, whatever it's been. I am an employee of Parker Hannafin and who is located at that building. Do I have to abstain from voting on this, or am I okay to vote on it since it's they've met all the terms?
Yeah, I think it's fine for you to vote on, especially since you've disclosed that you do work there. I don't think there's any type of conflict of interest, Council President.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Kosky,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Soloto,
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gerhardstein, seconded by Councilwoman Sloto to adopt resolution 2021-07 as presented. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Kosky,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Soloto,
Yes.
Other legislation? Miscellaneous? I would just say, just a reminder to all that we have a tax budget meeting at 6:45 on June 28th. Any other miscellaneous? If not, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session to discuss personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Jaworski, seconded by Councilman Bogo to move into executive session to discuss personnel. Discussion? Sandy, please call the roll.
Bogo,
Yes.
Gerhardstein,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Kosky,
Yes.
Levon,
Yes.
Soloto,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll meet you, everybody meet up at City Hall, please, all council and the mayor, please. Thank you.
Ed. He's gone.
I think so. Sorry, Maria.
Oh, that's okay. I won't be able to attend. I'm in Columbus, so.
Okay, sorry, Maria. Thank you.
Okay.